Check 1 2, check 1 2. Okay. Well, good. But I'm not.
It was impressive.
You entered 85247173323. This meeting ID does not exist. Please re-enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
He said, "Yeah, I want to be outside. We gotta." So they went and got the tractor and then towed it back into the.
Redevelopment Agency meeting of January 17th, 2023. Please let the record reflect that all board members are present. And we're going to start this evening with a public hearing for fiscal year 2022 to 2023 budget amendment about the Union Station property. And we welcome Lisa Stout, the comptroller.
Thank you. Board members, I appreciate the ability to be here tonight. Earlier, the City Council adopted a budget opening to transfer $300,000 from the city to the redevelopment agency. The budget action before you, Resolution 2023-4, is a budget ordinance, a budget resolution to appropriate that $300,000 into the Kiesel Avenue RDA area. These funds will be used for down payment on the property purchase of the Union Station. The property purchase, the real estate transaction was approved by council back in December. And this is putting the budget in place to move forward with the down payment and the environmental assessment and other due diligence costs that may occur. We will come forward with a budget proposal each year to fund the payment, the annual payment for the Union Station property purchase. It will be about $750,000 per year, and that would be included in the annual budget presented to council. Any questions?
Any questions from board members?
Just real quickly, the redevelopment agency is allowed under state law to purchase property, and the Union Station purchase is near the Kiesel Avenue area. We talked to the legal department, and they felt like this was the best place to budget this property purchase. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Lisa.
No, I was just going to say thank you
Okay.
before I ask the question.
I really need a buzzer system. I'm sorry. Great. Well, this is actually a public hearing, so if anyone would like to make comment on this particular item, the Union Station property budget amendment, you may step to the mic here in the chamber, state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes to speak. And online, you can raise your hand, and we'd be happy to let you speak.
Chair, seeing no movement, I would make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Oh, I see Al Jones' hand pop up.
Second. Sorry. Sorry, Al.
We'll pause that motion for a moment, and
I hope Al got
Al,
that.
I
we're
love
just-
you. I love you, Al. I
we're
love you.
just teasing you, Al. But please, go ahead and state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes to speak about this item. Maybe.
My name is Al Jones. I'm an Ogden City resident, and I really appreciate you letting me sneak under the gun. I'm in full support of buying the ground under the Union Station, and I think this is a good deal, and I hope this is a step forward in a really fruitful, beautiful plan for Ogden. And thank you for the time, and thank you for all that you guys do. That's it.
Thank you. Oh, and Sebastian. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can.
Please do it. Just please do it.
Well, this is only about the Union
Thank you.
Station property item.
Yes, I know that. Please
Oh,
just
okay.
approve it. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
said,
So
please do
sorry.
it.
Just that.
So sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sebastian. Sorry, I misheard. Okay, so should we go ahead and take your motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Perfect.
We have a motion by Board Member Blair and a second by Board Member Lopez to close the public hearing. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Would anybody like to propose a motion?
If there's no other comments or further comment, I would make a motion that we adopt proposed resolution 2023-2.
Second.
We have a motion by Board Member Blair and a second by Board Member Heyer to adopt proposed resolution 2023-2. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Nadolski,
Aye.
Board Member White,
Aye.
Board Member Blair,
Aye.
Board Member Heyer,
Aye.
Board Member Lopez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Ritchie,
Aye.
Chair Chaburka.
Aye, and that passes. Thank you. Thanks so much. Next up, we have report to administration about the Wonder Block project. We have a presentation first, and it looks like we have three different actions. So will you be presenting everything at once, Brandon? Still talking. Will you be presenting about all three items at
Yes,
once? Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. I will be discussing proposed resolution 2023-3, 4, and 5 together.
You may want to introduce yourself. I didn't get a chance to do that before you came.
My name is Brandon Cooper. I'm the Director of Community and Economic Development.
Thank you. I just think sometimes people don't know, like, who's talking? I don't know.
If they don't know
Not that
at
they
this
wouldn't
point.
know you. Yeah.
As I just mentioned, we'll be talking about those three resolutions. They are referring to three separate agreements. One is the state court real estate purchase contract, the operating agreement between JF Fisher Companies, and the amended and restated land transfer and development agreement. I won't refer to any of the previous presentations we've made on WonderBlock, except to just remind the board about the business case, the reason in which we're even proposing this project, and that is based on these five principles: strategic community investment, preparing for smart growth, accelerating economic growth, placemaking and product development, and financial sustainability. If you were to go back and look at your own strategic directives, you would find that they match up pretty well. Okay, so let's talk about where we were and where we've come to. In December of 2020, you all approved a land transfer and development agreement, and that was a conditional agreement. It talked about the approval of a land conveyance subject to those four agreements there: the master lease, the parking agreement, state courts agreement, and an incentive agreement. Well, since then, we've revised the project, and therefore we've revised the legal structure in which we are proposing to move forward with the project. And I would be remiss if I didn't call out Mel Smith and the great work that he has done. As you know, he retired from the city. We brought him back, and he has been very, very, very instrumental in helping us make this transition from the old agreements and structure to the new one that I will outline tonight. That consists of a restated and amended land transfer and development agreement, so that has some new terms. It also restates a lot of the old terms that were in the original. There is a state court real estate purchase agreement, which is similar to what we were anticipating originally, but has also changed and evolved. And most importantly, an operating agreement that replaces a master lease and an incentive agreement. So now this is a true public-private partnership in which the agency would be joint venture partner with JF Fisher Companies. So let's start with the state court purchase contract. This was previously approved in the council meeting tonight. It sets forth the terms and conditions of the acquisition of 7 parcels that the state currently owns. That is highlighted here in the red area. This is adjacent to their current district court and is now being occupied as parking, mostly for the court operations. The state's willing to convey those parcels to the agency in exchange for 100 parking stalls perpetually in the east parking structure, and that's the one highlighted here in blue, which is next to the brown ice cream shop. In addition to that, they have the perpetual right for the 100 stalls, but then also the commitment that suitable parking will always be available for them. And so we have looked at how to facilitate that during construction as well. I'll get to that in just a minute. In addition to those 100 stalls, they'll retain 15 stalls that they currently have. So right there in the middle of the picture in the district court aerial there, they currently have judicial parking for their judges, and they'll retain that. The agreement does stipulate a wall being built to protect that parking from the adjacent project there at the residential side. So that'll be committed to in this agreement and will be built by the developer as part of the project. The stalls that they have access to perpetually will be during the hours of 7:30 to 5:30, and then they become public. So they could be used for the residents of the Wonder Block, visitors, workers, or just general public after those hours. Attached to the purchase contract is a perpetual parking easement, and that's what I mentioned, where we have a right to provide parking without interruption. There's some timing issues between when the property is conveyed to the agency versus when the project starts versus when the project is built. And so during all that time, the state needs assurance that they can continue business and park their employees and patrons. And so we'll be providing 97 stalls as part of this agreement on Grant Avenue. Similar to this is just a rendering, but there would be some restriping on the street. There'd be some new signage and some other things in terms of enforcement to allow the court to utilize that section of property between 26th and 25th for the purpose of parking their business patrons and employees. And so that's outlined in the perpetual easement. This is also why Ogden City is a party to the agreement. As the council, you approved this agreement previously, and that's why Ogden City is a party to this agreement, although it's the agency who is actually taking ownership of the property. Also in the perpetual parking agreement, we've anticipated potential changes. These structures are built for a 50-year lifespan initially, and so we wanted to at least address in the agreement what potentially could happen in 50 years, and there's some flexibility based on the needs of the court and where we would be in terms of the agency. We could rebuild the parking structure as is, providing the 200 stalls, 100 committed, and potentially 100 if they pay for it. We could build a smaller structure if less is needed, so there's some flexibility in the agreement as time goes on. There again is that drawing. Okay, so that is the state purchase and sale, real estate purchase contract.
I have a question too. Go ahead.
Let's see if it's the same one. Is that both sides of the road?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
Thank you.
And I was just going to ask, will that remain after the parking is built?
No, it would be converted back.
Into-
There are, this is the Grant Promenade lane.
Right.
We don't have drawings to extend Grant Promenade to 26th Street, but there is hopes that we could and potentially improve that consistent with how it looks further to the north.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to the operating agreement. Again, I mentioned in 2020, December of 2020, the land transfer and development agreement was approved, and it had contemplated an incentive agreement and a lease agreement that worked hand in hand to help with the project financials. As the project evolved from Make Ogden and from some of the goals that we stipulated as a city, it was necessary for us to contemplate a new arrangement with the developer, and thus we have the operating agreement that sets forth the terms and conditions of a joint venture. The key terms, and this is all in your packet, Janine and her staff did a wonderful job outlining the terms of the agreement. I'll just cover a few of these. The members are the agency and JF Wonderblock Partners QOF. They come together to create the company JF Wonderblock Partners QOZB. Did I get that right? It's a mouthful. And that is the joint venture partnership that has the ownership and management rights for the Wonderblock project. In the operating agreement, it stipulates the capital contributions that both entities would be making to the project. The agency's investment is 66.2. The reason why that's different from the 64 million is because we're getting value for the money that we have already put into the project in the pre-development phase. And so that is attributed to our capital contribution and has the potential to come back to, in which I'll come back to us, and I'll mention that in a minute. The remaining balance to finish the project is about $122 million, and the developer would apply that to their capital contribution in the form of debt and equity. Over time, after the project's built, because this is in an opportunity zone, there are benefits to qualified investments from a tax standpoint, and there's some timelines and thresholds to when those benefits are available to mostly JF and their investors. Because the agency is a government entity, they don't inure to the agency, but they would be beneficial for JF and their partners. And so there's some timing associated with this. And so as appreciation happens, and if a sale was to occur, it would not occur before 10 years, but after the 10-year mark, if it did occur, there is available cash to be distributed amongst that ownership group. That first dollar, or those first dollars, would go to JF Capital, or J. Fisher Companies, in this case, the QOZ or QOF partnership. That would be distributed to them until their initial capital contribution, as stipulated in the agreement, was reduced to zero. And then if there were additional dollars available, then JF would receive those until the 20% internal rate of return was achieved. And then beyond that, there would be a stipulated distribution in multiple tiers. And those tiers are called a waterfall. And that is spelled out very clearly in the agreement with definitions and other things. I've tried to summarize this. I think Janine did a great job. So tier 1 percentages are based on the loan to cost percentage. So what ratio the bank loans them money based on the cost, and that will determine the distribution of available cash in those tier 1, 2, and 3 categories. And it's a sliding scale, so if that loan to cost is higher, then that distribution to the city changes. And that is reflected until and if we get to a third and fourth level. So tier 1 is meant to get us to 10% of our bond payments and any of the non-refunded pre-development cash. That 10% is important because of the taxability of the bonds. There's some rules that we have to live in so that we don't get in trouble with the IRS for that. And so that's the tier 1. If there is additional money beyond that, then that could inure to the agency to reduce those bond payments beyond that 10% all the way up to zero if possible. And that's really what tier 3 is that distribution to the entities, and in our case would go to help retire the initial bond, potentially all the way up to the full $64 million. And there's obviously some things that need to happen in terms of appreciation, but if you look at not even just the recent past, because that can be looked at as not an anomaly, but a cycle. So if you go back even a couple of cycles and blend those return rates, then it's very reasonable to think on a conservative basis that the agency could receive most of its investment back. But again, we've said this before, and that is that despite the benefit of that, we tried very hard to propose a project that met the needs of the community, and I'll get to that in a little bit, a bit more, as well as align our relationship with our joint venture partner so that if they win, we win, and if we win, they win. And I believe that we've done that very successfully. Other items in the operating agreement include the management terms. So only the manager has a vote in the management of the operations. This is so that the manager, which in this case would be J. Fisher Company, doesn't have to come to the city council or the board every time they want to repaint a wall or do something like that. And so again, we're very aligned in terms of success, so we have all the confidence in the world that the management would be in our best interest as well. It has to be managed in a certain manner anyway, based on the status of the qualified opportunity zone and in a manner to maintain our tax exempt status. And so none of those things can be breached. And they have to discharge their duties with honesty and in good faith. And we would be joined at the hip with them, not only through construction, but through management as well. And that is something different than we have at the junction. The management discussions that we have there are not frequent. And you compare that to maybe the BDO, where they're also not frequent, but that relationship at the BDO is aligned so well that we have all the faith and trust in the world for those folks to make good management decisions. So moving on with more of the management terms, there are ways for the members to transfer their interest, but it has to be a unanimous consent. And so there isn't going to be a replacement of members in this joint venture without the unanimous vote of all of the members. And so that helps us to maintain the integrity of the original members and the intent of the project as it was originated now. That will make a lot of sense and be meaningful 10 years or 9 years from now when we're looking to potentially sell or do something like that. The manager gets a property management fee of 3.5% of the project. That is conservative. If our representatives from JF Fisher were to come up here, they would probably cringe a little bit, but Mel did a great job negotiating that, as well as the construction management fee of 5%. Those are both below industry standards. So before I just summarize a few things, is there any questions about the operating agreement, the court agreement, and the LTDA is generally, there isn't a bunch of slides about that. It generally is stipulating and restating most of what was in the original LTDA plus a lot of what's in the operating agreement. And so it's just an administrative document that helps us to make sure that joint venture outside of the operating agreement has administrative oversight as well. So any questions about those three agreements?
Not seeing any rapid movement toward the mic.
Okay, so so again, just to remind you, our recommendation is to approve all three resolutions for all three of the agreements. I brought this slide up again just to summarize a few things going back to the business case. On the left, my left, you see 25th Street circa 1972, and you can see the condition that both the Union Station and the street was in back then. A lot of people don't know, but prior to, between this time and about I would say mid-90s, the south side of the 100 block was completely vacant, about mid-block to Lincoln Avenue. Most of that block on the south side is all new construction. That's how bad 25th Street had gotten. You can see how the car dominated. You can see how the parking to the north, the electric alley actually looked like 25th Street. If you go back far enough, the density and compact nature of 25th Street existed on 24th Street. It existed on 26th Street. Obviously, Washington, it still exists in some places. If you go to the picture on the right, the 30s, you can see that, and I know it's very hard to see with some of the black grainy pictures, but what you're not seeing in that picture is parking lots. You're not seeing demolition of important buildings to make way for parking lots and other transit-oriented or car-oriented things. So over the years, and I've mentioned this a number of times, over the years, the development patterns and behaviors of Ogden City, both in ordinances and zoning, has led to the demise of the downtown that we once had. And we paid Joe Minikazi to come tell us this, or at least validate the things we already knew. He then took that same information and shared it to other communities in the city and referenced Ogden as a business case in terms of what not to do and what to do to correct that. Make Ogden has been the roadmap to correct our land planning issues, and Wonderblock is the first project that has materialized from that and embodies all of the principles and all of the values and traits that Ogden once held dear, and that is compact, dense, valuable development patterns that create a sense of place. So that's our recommendation. I have some other thoughts related to a conversation that was held earlier tonight that could be helpful, Chair, if you're open to another slide that's a little slightly off topic from the agreements, but might be helpful.
Why not?
It's early, right?
It's not midnight.
It's not midnight.
So,
Brandon? I believe this was part of another presentation before, and I won't spend time on the triangle to the left. This triangle is a progression, and this is something that is well established in terms of economic developers and thinking, and it essentially moves through the progression of a city from its basic needs to its self-actualization. I wanted to spend time on the formula to the right. I am not a math person, but I am an economics person, and so I understand how our city works. And I really enjoyed the conversation, Ben, that I think you brought up, and Marcia, you mentioned that all of these things are integrated, and we can walk and chew gum at the same time. Ben, you mentioned that there are certain things that need to be done first to yield an outcome to then do other things. And so we've tried to put that into a formula. So if the dollar equals the value of a dollar expressed in property, and the so the dollar times A is the value of the dollar expressed in your property. So A is your property. And B is the percentage of each individual dollar taxed. So that's essentially our tax rate. C is the property tax revenue that we receive, and D is the cost of the city services. This equation seeks to be balanced so that as you increase A, which is the value of your property, whether it's commercial or residential, and you multiply that by the tax rate, then the revenue that you receive, which is C, minus the cost of the services, has to equal. If they don't, you have a deficit. If they do, you have a surplus. So how do you affect this equation so that you can continue to provide D in a meaningful way, whatever that might be, without affecting change on B as much as possible? And that is that you increase value, you increase A. And I'm not going to get into how we do that, but there are myriad of ways in tax increment finance, and in this case, using non-tax revenue to augment tax increment finance is one of the most sophisticated and sought-after method to do this. Everyone in the state wishes that they had the abilities that we have, and that's because tax increment finance is amazing, but we have the ability to augment it so that A does not necessarily need to change. I was at the county this week, and I was talking to folks in the auditor's office and the Treasury office, and they mentioned that for the first time since, I believe, 1984, our city is made up of 80% residential, 20% commercial. But the 20% commercial for decades has shouldered the tax burden of the bulk of our property tax revenue until last year. Last year, that property tax revenue burden shifted to the residential. So 80% of our population is now carrying the bulk of the tax burden. And so as we look to balance this equation, we look to invest in property that has the highest yield, and in most cases that's our commercial property in our downtown. Joe Minikazi validated that and then spread the gospel of that to other communities. And we do that through value and density. And it's not new. I wish I could take credit. Oh, this is only a single slide. I'm like, go back to those pictures. It's not a new idea. It's an idea that we have witnessed for decades and decades and decades. And the fact that we can be here in these meetings and talk about how to allocate our expenditures means that it's working. The economic development formula that we have been proposing for 15 years is working. And now we're having these discussions about how do we allocate that revenue to expenses? How do we build better parks? How do we build better infrastructure? let's have conversations about how we allocate. Let's not attack the economic development strategy, because the fact that we can have this conversation is a result of the economic development strategy. And so with that, there's a whole nother conversation about how we plug in resources to increase A and hopefully reduce B, the property tax ratio. And I'd be happy to do that in work session sometime. But I just wanted to add that to the conversation, that we're doing the right thing. And if you cannot see that, then I don't know how more forcefully or eloquently to tell you that it's working than to just look around.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thanks.
Can I ask a question, Chair?
Oh, please.
The 80-20, was that countywide or just city?
That was Ogden City.
Oh, okay. So you're talking to the county, but that was city specific.
Right.
That's super interesting. I agree with you. I don't have any beef with the principles. I mean, it's all sound. It's good. It's forward thinking and cutting edge, and it's what we need, and we need more of it. It's how we do those principles with people and for people, which is where we're tripping up. And that's the next stage of growth for us, in my view. I think we're on the same page, actually.
I think so. Don't be scared.
No, you don't be scared.
I think the only challenge I have, and I totally understand the formula, and I totally agree. I don't want any more parking lots. Totally agree with that. I think that was one of the first things I ever said to you when we first met.
Yep.
It's like looking at a map. I'm like, look at all the parking lots. We got to get rid of this. Anyway, but I think for me, when you look at the pyramid and social equity is at the top for self-actualization, I have a philosophical problem because I believe equity should be at the heart of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so getting to the top of the self-actualization, I understand what it means in this chart. So it doesn't mean exactly the same thing when you're demonstrating that. So for me, that's just a little bit of a rub because I feel we can do it all at once. It doesn't have to wait till the very end. So I think that's, just a philosophical difference. But.
Yeah, I agree that there might be some definition differences there, but I agree.
Yeah.
As you move through that, the concepts of inclusion and all of those things are all baked in, right?
Yeah, and we've talked a lot
You have
about
to
it
do this
already.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're on the same page there.
Yeah, agreed. Any other questions? Well, thank you so much. It looks like we have some actions to consider.
Thank you.
For those of you that are online with your hands up, there's no public comment for this item or for this meeting, just so you know. Would anybody like to propose a motion of any kind?
Chair, I'll make a motion that we adopt Resolution 2023-3.
Second.
We have a motion by Board Member Heyer and a second by Board Member Blair to adopt proposed Resolution 2023-3. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member White,
Aye.
Board Member Blair,
Aye.
Board Member Heyer,
Aye.
Board Member Lopez,
Aye.
Board Member Nadolski,
No.
Vice Chair Ritchie,
Aye.
Chair Chaburka.
Aye, and that passes. Would you like to make a comment?
I'll make the comment now, because the same rationale applies to the next two. I'm just finishing my vote from last week is how I feel. I'm actually anxious to get on board with supporting the project and in doing my part to help ensure its success, because it has to succeed. So bear with me for tonight, not a reflection of anybody or anything, just further reflection of my conscience from last week. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay.
Chair, I'd like to make a motion then that we adopt Resolution 2023-4.
Second.
I have a motion by Board Member Heyer and a second by Board Member White to adopt proposed Resolution 2023-4. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Blair,
Aye.
Board Member Heyer,
Aye.
Board Member Lopez,
Aye.
Board Member Nadolski,
No.
Board Member White,
Aye.
Vice Chair Ritchie,
Aye.
Chair Chaburka.
No. And that passes. And I'll just mention that, again, this is just a comment on my concerned about the process. I certainly appreciate all the efforts the developers and our staff have put into bringing this project forward. I believe in the overall project. I just want to make sure that our process is very equitable, and I feel like there should have been comparison of bidding or developers in the process, among many other issues with the operating agreement. But I just have to say, too, that I do really love this model that Mel has helped to develop of the possibility for us gaining back some of our investment. Although I agree with Brandon, on the other hand, that making an investment in our downtown like this is also really important and will help us, too. So, I mean, it's a very, very complex project, so it's very hard to agree with every single element. And obviously, my vote doesn't really matter because it's going to pass anyway, and I want to make it very successful, so. That's just my comment.
I feel you.
Chair, I'll make another motion that we adopt resolution 2023-5.
Second.
Who wants it down there? Okay. We have a motion by Board Member Heyer, second by Board Member White, to adopt resolution 2023-5, and this is a roll call vote.
Board Member Heyer.
Aye.
Board Member Lopez.
Aye.
Board Member Nadolski.
It's pretty close. No.
Board Member White.
Aye.
Board Member Blair.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ritchie.
Aye.
Chair Chaburka.
No, and that passes. Any other comments from the Executive Director?
I really do want to call out our CED team and the thousands of hours that have gone into this, and the development community that have put thousands of hours and millions of dollars into this as well. We appreciate your vision and your commitment to our city and what's happening downtown. I appreciate all of your support. This is years in the making, and it's a big deal for everyone, and I agree. We're all invested to make sure that this comes across as well and gives the best opportunity for all of the community at hand. So thank you for your support. Thank you all for the work you've put into this. Thank you for your investments into this. It's truly visionary, and I'm really excited that we get to move forward and hopefully put a good product out there for everybody.
Thank you. Any other comments from board members?
I do have some comments. So the last time when we voted on the first round of ordinances, or the things that we needed to pass to make this possible, this is so complex. We've all talked about that, and how I don't know who else knows everything, every single part of these, except for Mel. But I certainly don't. And I asked myself the question, right? Last time I asked myself the question, would I invest all my money into these projects? And when I voted last time, the answer was no, I wouldn't. And today the answer was yes. And I've been very conflicted. This is really hard. So I wish I could have done what the gentleman that was here and came and spoke last time and said, gave his spiel, and then he said, I don't know what to do, but I trust you guys, so I'm leaving. That's what I wanted to do today, honestly. Too bad we can't.
Next year.
Next year. And then, again, I just really want to recognize just the work. Again, I've never seen so much effort to be open with the council about a project. I have never seen that. Am I 100% sold that it is perfect? No, I'm not. But I believe that there were enough people, bright people, smart people, people that love our city, people that are invested in our city, people that want the best for Ogden. Of course, the developers are going to make money. That's their job. That's what all developers want to do. on top of wanting to improve communities. I'm sure there's a social aspect to these as well. But I don't fault developers for making money. That's what developers do. I think we all want that to some extent. So I just feel like I wanted to give a little bit of reasoning from the way I voted last time to the way I voted today. The answers, again, some of the conversations that I had, one of my issues was home ownership, and that was addressed. And I really appreciated that there was some research that was done about that. I didn't understand it very well. I feel like I understand it now. I feel like the answers were legitimate. I feel like the answers were transparent on that one, which was very, very important for me. In fact, I said here at the dais when I said that it would be a deal breaker for me, and that's again why I voted the way I voted last time. And this time, the fact that there was more information that came forward helped me, adjust my reasoning. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Chair?
Sorry.
Yeah, wait, are you first?
Whoever wants to go first.
I don't want to arm wrestle you. You'll win.
You don't want
it. I really appreciate Board Member Lopez's comments, and that's kind of been the thought process I've gone through. Is if it's for my money, how would I do this? I still wouldn't bet all my money because I just don't.
I just don't have a lot.
Yeah.
So.
And that's why I wouldn't bet at all. We were criticized a little bit about that we're just taking this all on faith, and I think there is an element of faith in this, but it's not hollow faith. It is, we've asked the questions. I think, Board Member Dondowski's complained about losing sleep, and I think all of us have lost sleep or certainly been uneasy about a lot of this. And as we've processed through the arguments and asked the smart people that understand this stuff, it gave me a reason to exercise that faith so that we could go forward. I've lived in this town since I was born. I was born in the park up on Harrison up there. Used to be a hospital though.
In the park, okay. Sorry.
Used to be a hospital, but it was a park now. And I've lived here my whole life virtually, and I love Ogden. It is who I am. It is why I live here. I'm not moving away. I'm not going anywhere. And I am excited about this. Let me use Brandon's vernacular, episodic event. Is that the term? This is really cool. I'm looking forward to it. And, I also want to kind of tamp down on the thought that we're really blowing taxpayer money on this deal. This is going to be a self-perpetuating deal. That's the design of this. It's not going to require us to raise taxes. I guess if the whole world fell apart and the sky did fall, maybe there'd be an issue, but I don't expect that. I've also, pulled out my little constitution and read it to see if I could tax people, and I don't see anywhere in here where what we're doing is violating the Constitution.
Thank you for checking that.
I do read the Constitution at least yearly, so I try to make sure that when I raise my arm to the square and make that oath, that I know what I'm making. So anyway, I am excited. I not with a little trepidation, because we just don't know everything, but I think we know as much as we can know, and I think we got a good project. And I wanted to thank our people for the good work you've put forth. It's all been under the very best intentions. I don't see anybody with any motive that is contrary to making Ogden better. So thank you.
Can I follow that?
Sure.
Or try at least. I was talking with, well, I'll start by saying if Tom is out there watching, first, God help your soul, because you gotta do better with your time. But somehow he needs to know I'm a Christopolis convert on the principles that are behind this project. And that took a ton of time and energy on a lot of people's parts to help me get to there. And I think we're all kind of converted to, and it's the principles that I think that the state is recognizing too. And so I say that because I told the developers in our intermission, after I did the more important things first, that, you know, you guys are watching the sausage being made right now, and we can view that a number of different ways. One, we could view it for the dysfunction that it is, like we'll just call a spade, right, or whatever that term is. But sometimes that's what's needed to grow. And so depending on our perspective, we can see this as like this huge dysfunctional mess, or we can see this as an opportunity for growth. And I truly believe this is an opportunity for growth, and that you're watching the growth right now, because I'm personally nervous about the project, not because I don't like it, but because I'm nervous about all the things that are going to have to fall into place in order for it to succeed. That means that I could leave this meeting and undermine the project because I voted against it and show everybody that I was right and you were wrong or whatever, but what good does that do for Ogden? I'm dying to get behind this thing to make it succeed, help it succeed. I don't have that much power or influence, but I hope to do my part to get it through the finish line because it has to succeed. If it doesn't, not only are you hosed, but we're hosed. I'm trying to pick my words carefully. Raised different with different terminology, but I am so tired of these flashpoints that we keep experiencing. I don't want to dredge up old material, so I'll just use a couple recent ones, but there was a time where Marshall White was like the flashpoint. It was the thing that some of us or all of us were willing to die on one way or the other. And we pushed through that, and we came through that with tons of scars, just tons of scar tissue. I don't think we came through that with real credibility and trust. We came through it with real pain, real fatigue, and real scars. We have a real project that we are working on too. But then comes the Wonder Block project and the Union Station at the same time. And the people are coming and telling us, hey, freaking invest in the Union Station. Make your priorities clear. Tell us what you stand for, right? The fact is, we can't go through what we just did on Wonder Block when it's Union Station's turn. Now's the time to change the temperature, turn the tide, do what the community is asking us of the Union Station, because frankly, we all want the same thing, so that we don't have another flashpoint in the future. I'm fatigued by the flashpoints. It's wasted energy. It's energy that really could be going toward inspirational work that we find fulfilling, the work that inspired each of us to be here tonight. And when we made the decision to run, we love this town, right? You're born here, you're dying here, period.
That's right.
So anyway, that's what I see as the future, and what this opportunity that this project presents is the opportunity for the next chapter for Ogden. It's the scale of the project that worries me right now, but it's the scale of the project and the principles of the project that we need to apply in the future. And as we apply those principles and that scale, we got to do it with people on our side. Yeah, we're going to invest energy in people. Let's invest it in the right ways by inspiring those people to support the work that we're doing, while we make sure that on the issues that matter to them every day, we are working just as hard to solve those problems for them. I am amazed at the creativity and passion and freaking smarts, Mel, that went into this thing, right? We moved heaven and earth to make this work. Let's move heaven and earth to make parks work, to buy parks and set aside open space. Let's move heaven and earth to make sure our kids have the programs and recreation that they need so that those freaking kitchen table issues are solved. Then we will have people on our side to do more Wonder Blocks so we can do more parks, more recreation, etc.
All right. At the risk of pushing us into the 9 o'clock hour, I'll be pretty brief, I think. But Board Member Blair and White, we were told that you can watch this meeting after the fact on 2x speed. So we probably all sound like a bunch of chipmunks, which I think that'd be kind of fun. Maybe if we could experience it in 2x speed the first time round, then it wouldn't be as taxing. But I just, last week was a difficult week. We heard a lot of opinions, we heard a lot of concerns, and, I absorb that. It affects me, but I signed up for this as well. And so, it's something that I get to deal with on that side. But I just hope that as people watch this process, they realize that we're doing our due diligence, we're checking, we're asking the questions. We love it when we have constituents reach out to us with concerns that we haven't thought of, because it helps us learn more as well. And so, and when it comes to this project, I really do feel like I've poured a lot of time and energy into it, and of everyone up here, the least amount of time, because I think these conversations we're having, we've had prior to this last year. But as I've read, as I've studied, as we've dialogued back and forth, and we've looked at spreadsheets, and we've gone through all these things, I do wholeheartedly support this project. And for those that say, well, we should all have a voice, my answer is you all have a voice. We all have a voice. We get elected, and that's our position here. And I never wanted to make a decision, ever felt like I wanted to make a decision or comment that was based on a re-election. And if you don't trust the decision or the process, and you feel like we haven't made the right decision, there's an opportunity there. The next election, and that's totally fine. And that's what our country and our world's founded upon. So I open up the invitation again, that if you ever have questions or concerns, please reach out to me. I try to respond as quickly as I can. Sometimes it's faster than others. I get phone calls, and sometimes I get them. Sometimes it takes a few days to get back, but that's what I signed up for, and that's what I'm here to do. And so thanks for those who have expressed their opinions, and if it didn't go the way you wanted it to go, I hope you don't feel like it was all wasted efforts, because as you share your concerns, that does help us with the discussion and help us with the interaction on things. So let's leave it at that.
Chair, I'll be super brief. Just to kind of piggyback on what's been said already, I'd feel bad if I didn't thank a lot of people in this room for getting us to this point. Last week was rough, and not rough, but last week was long, and it seemed like a long process. But there was so much that went into getting to that point. And so I'd like to thank the administration for being totally open and honest with us from the very beginning, saying this is what we've got coming down the pipeline, and we need to know where you're at. We need to see, can we get to this point? Can we do this? And letting us know that that's a priority, and helping us see that as a priority and getting to that point so that we can put resources and put efforts towards getting to this point. I'd like to thank our staff for, I think I could say, in my own case, spoon feeding and hand holding to make sure that I get to a certain point where I feel comfortable knowing what I need to know to make a decision, informed decision. Numerous times from both the administration and from our staff, there was, Councilman Blair, are you sure you have what you need to make a decision? Do you need anything else? And I appreciate that. I fully appreciate that. To Brandon and his team and Mel, I don't want to joke, but the lost sleep that I got, sometimes I was able to recap during some of those presentations. So thank you so much for the flow charts and all that stuff, because, man, it was way over my head. But I appreciate the time and effort that was put into making sure that that allowed each of us, myself especially, to make an informed decision and to know exactly what we're getting into. Do we have a crystal ball? No, we don't. No, we don't. And I don't want to pretend that we do. But I was presented all the information by people that I wholeheartedly have faith and trust in, and I appreciate the time and effort that all of you put in. Numerous times along the way, I was able to meet with the developers, and I appreciate that. Never once was this, we're doing this for us, or we're doing this for our own benefit. They have always expressed their desire to help Ogden keep moving forward, to help Ogden grow and expand and become even greater. And I appreciate their passion, their love, and their vision that they have for our city, and their work ethic. I really appreciate the effort that's been put in to get this project going, and I am excited about the partnership that we've created. That was talked a lot earlier about in the closed session, was about a partnership, and I'm excited about the partnership that we've established here, and hopefully moving forward. So I know that it seems like we've had this huge, long getting ready phase, and we're now at the starting line. But just like in anything, I mean, there's so much preparation to get into anything that's great. We had the high school band here, and they talked about how much time and effort went into so they could be ready for when they were able to perform. And I feel like that's what we've been doing for the past years, is preparing ourselves so we can be here, so that now that we're here, we can continue to perform and take those efforts, like has been said, into expanding those efforts into other parts of our city, that we can continue to make other parts of our city just as wonderful. And so I'm excited where we're at. Sure, we might have got beat up a little bit, but we got through it, and that's what we're here for. So I appreciate it, and I do thank everybody for, like I said, bringing me along.
We'll
Probably
survive,
slower.
right?
Yep, we'll survive.
Anybody else?
Sure, thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to say a couple things, and I agree with everything that's been said up here practically, and I just appreciate everybody being so thoughtful about the process, etc. I think some things that I'm thinking about is how we continue to include, like we had talked about in many different settings, include and support the local businesses that are already here, that have invested so much. I know this is going to be a huge benefit to them, but in the meanwhile, what are we going to do to help them to survive? And I know we do a lot already, but I think there's more ways that we can be listening and helping to support them. Because I do agree, we spend time and energy on certain places, and I'm totally willing. We're having discussions now, what are our priorities for budget cycle, et cetera. I'm totally willing to put support behind additional resource for doing a whole request for a qualifications process, et cetera, whatever it might be that we want to do that might be the best option for Ogden to make it more equitable and fair in the process. And nothing against the people that are involved here. I don't have any suspicions or anything like that. I just think it needs to be open and public. And then also thinking a little bit more about the outreach, whether we need to invest additionally in Ogden Downtown Alliance, et cetera. This is going to add a lot to that plate of doing outreach and engagement for that area. Whatever we need to do, I'm willing to back those kinds of efforts to give additional resources where we need them. So that's all I wanted to say.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion by Board Member Heyer, second by Board Member Nadolski to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for sticking it out. Only 9:10.